Yes.
Hello and welcome back to Let the Story Write Itself. I'm Sarah, and today I'm talking about living wide awake, how higher emotions and more experience expand your life. Today, let's talk about something most only touch at on the surface. Living in higher states of emotion, seeking out more world, craving richer experiences. Have you ever felt like there's more to life than just routine, just getting by? Wondered what would happen if you actually went after more feeling, more adventure, more story. This shift for me started the moment that I realized creativity, clarity, and meaning aren't just about where you are, it's about how you experience your life. The more I leaned into new places and new experiences, the more alive and open I became emotionally. Today, we're talking about the power of higher states of emotion, joy, curiosity, awe, gratitude, why they're essential for a big, meaningful life. Chasing new experiences and exploring more of the world naturally raises your baseline and broadens your perspective. Practical ways to bring more of feeling, more story, more aliveness into your day to day, no matter where you are. I'm sharing my journey going from creative, comfort filled home to a life of constant movement and newness that taught me ultimately how to access bigger, even better emotions and create a richer life. So let's break it down. When you're traveling or living light, every day feels like an adventure, an opening. Small things, a view from a train, a burst of sunlight, a new city, it triggers huge waves of gratitude and inspiration. It's these peak experiences and moments of life. Sometimes you just go through day to day life and you're having just like the same thoughts and experiences, and every day's kind of just rolls into the next. I learned that when you actively seek out new experiences, whether it's traveling or going on a trip, a new project, a new daily habit, you invite in more emotion, more story, more meaning into your life. There's a noticeable difference between living in routine and living awake. Higher states like joy and awe don't show up in autopilot mode. They show up when you stretch, when you say yes to the unknown, when you decide you want more. Even in the years where I was just comfortable living at home, going to university, there was a lot of sunlight that used to just fill the home and have like a garden full of raspberries and like all the comforts. I'd be surrounded by like all the things that I love, right? And I played like piano and music, and like would paint the walls like where I got to paint the walls like a nice like this deep purple at least as like an accent color. So there's always like a lot of color and creativity and play in my household. And it's just filled with so many beautiful moments, creativity, and a lot of beautiful feelings actually. And started making these much more intentional. The more I travel, the more I notice it's the variety, the change, the newness pulls out higher emotions. You don't always need a plane ticket. It's just about noticing the world more deeply and saying yes to more experiences, big or small. Even when I was in university and I dreaded going to university, there were always like moments where I just loved just being in the garden with raspberries, the sunlight, the beautiful mornings, chives in the garden. Even on campus, it's a beautiful campus. I like learning. I like education. There are glimpses of moments of gratitude and appreciation. So even though as a whole appreciate, I didn't necessarily like it was not my path or my calling to go to university. A lot of times there was a lot of gratitude there regardless. But what happened when I started allowing myself to crack even more open and like allow myself to lead more from my heart and not be so like suffocated in a way, just living in this very narrow box of like going to university and like living more from my headspace, because it really was not my heart that led me there. It was the fear, like logically, like, telling me stay here, just complete this because you're better off if you do. So my heart was honestly wide open, although it was in a state of gratitude. It was always in a state of like appreciation and creativity. And I'd always loved playing piano, even when I know I didn't take lessons when I was in university, but I still continued to play piano and like the music that would always feel like the home and the sunlight that would flood in, right? And just being at home with family. Like I lived at home throughout all of my university. And this actually to me had was always like describes me to a T because I've never been someone who had huge aspirations of like this and that. I always just loved the quiet riches of everyday moments of life, the sunlight, fruit and nature, just natural everyday abundance. But the thing is that this higher states of emotion, like the power of higher states of emotion, the joy, the curiosity, the awe, the gratitude, really only became more bountiful when I was not tethered to the degree or the university that I never felt called to, right? Because these were really like weights and anchors that were, in a way, putting a ceiling on how much joy I really was feeling. And I was also capping myself because I was telling myself, well, I can't just, I, I have to finish this. I have to stay there. I have to stay in a situation that I'm not really feeling quite right in. So this is where I intuitively knew that it was not the right place for me because of how I felt. Even though in that part of my life, I was still very much like operating from a sense of like validation and like needing that logical piece where I was still thinking, oh well, I was overriding my feelings with that logic. So even though I was like feeling all the things and I every day was like, I'm just gonna quit. I'm leaving. I'm walking away. This is not it for me. This is not right. I'm having to like squelch myself so much just to even come here. And no, nevertheless, it's like that's how much you actually abuse yourself sometimes. It's like you literally don't even listen to how you feel and you override so much with the logic of your mind. And that's where, like, a lot of times you suppress your own higher states of emotion, these beautiful, gorgeous feelings of joy, curiosity, awe, gratitude. These are so essential for a big and meaningful life. These experiences and, exploring more of the world that I was led to in like subsequent years following university, it starts to naturally raise your baseline of emotion, your emotional baseline, and it starts to broaden your perspective by elevating you to a higher frequency and vantage point, essentially. So it's about allowing yourself to feel more and to have more story, more aliveness in your day to day, no matter where you are. And I just simply, no matter how many good things are in my life at home, while I was at university, there was a certain cap on how good I could feel because I was suppressing a lot of how I was actually feeling. And there was a lot of anger and like resentment and like a lot of not too good feelings wrapped up with being in that state of dreading going to university day in day out. Have you ever been in that place where there's a situation where you just like know in your heart of hearts it's not right for you, and yet your logic is overriding what you know in your heart, and that's putting a major cap on your emotional state. You know, the higher states is really where it's at. When you It's not really even about where you are, it's about who that saying, like, who you are being is more important than what you're doing is so true, because we live in a vibrational, energetic world. It has very little to do with, like, the actual actions you're taking. Two people could take these same exact actions and have different results, different experiences, different emotions because of who they're being, how they're feeling, and what their energetic currency is, essentially. So essentially living wide awake, where I really feel like there's an awakening that happened, like an enlightenment that occurred when I got myself out of that more depressed state where I was really suppressing a lot, having to like, shove under the rug, under the carpet, so to speak, to kind of keep myself going to university. Completing the degree with sheer willpower. It was effortful. That's not how life should be. It should feel like ease. It should feel like play. It should feel like joy. Living a life is a life wide awake. being actually alive and in that vibrancy is not just about what you do, but how much you're able to feel and how deeply you're able to experience your world. Even when I enrolled myself in psychotherapy right after university, I was able to feel so much more deeply because I was being my authentic self. I was allowing myself to express my truest emotions. So even though it was not necessarily like all joy and gratitude and love and peace, there was like some anger and rage and like sadness and fear that had to come out. I was at least allowing myself to feel these emotions, right? And that's where I allowed, like, unsuppressed a lot and allowed myself to have that emotional bandwidth that I simply was keeping to a very narrow state. And that's what I had to do to almost like allow myself to complete university, is what happened. I had to really narrow the amount of feelings that I could feel. I couldn't feel the whole bandwidth of emotion. So when you raise your natural baseline of how you feel by with higher, deeper, like just more broad emotions, richer experience, and like a grander story, you dive deeper into life itself and you open up more of life essentially. This is where your life starts to expand naturally. You allow the natural flow of life to just simply unfold, to simply unfold, to simply be essentially. You're not, it's like holding a balloon underwater, right? It's like if it's not being held underwater consciously and intentionally and forcefully, it naturally floats up to the surface, rises up, even just floats away. That's who you naturally are. You're a pure vibrational being full of energy. And if you simply allow yourself to be, that's who you will see. You got to just feel more, see more of the world, and be more of who you really are. It's those emotional highs that really make up the most beautiful parts of life. And how can you feel those highs if you're trying to suppress so much of what you're truly feeling? So, some actionable takeaways are to seek new experiences, especially ones that you do not come from your mind, that simply are from your soul. Allow your body to lead over your mind. And a lot of times, this will lead you to peak experiences and emotional states. Because when you're not trying to be someone you're not, when you're not trying to do something that you don't naturally want to do, you simply allow yourself to flow as you naturally are, hence allowing your body to lead. The natural emotion, like emotions, will naturally flow. And this is where states of like joy, awe, gratitude, connection will naturally arise and become a part of your everyday experience. So you have to make space for this. You cannot, when I was in university, I had very little bandwidth for anything else because it was just so time consuming. It took up so much energy. A lot of my mind was focused on that even when I wasn't focused on it. It was just on the back of my mind, like, oh gosh, I still have to complete that. There's still like stuff I have to do here. Going back to the campus the next day, la la la. It's just like an everyday part of your life. You can't really escape it. So there was really not much space for me to be anything else because I was beholden to that energetic state essentially. That was not very healthy for me. So adventure is really found in the everyday moments. And it's found when you allow yourself to just say yes to who you really are. When you're not trying to be someone that you're not. Allow your world to keep expanding. Even when you're at home, I always say that if I were to just live at home, in that beautiful, expansive, creative space that I always knew that my childhood essentially defines my childhood, like all the music and beauty and love and peace and joy, that was definitely tempered by the fact that a big piece of it was that I felt obligated to go to university. And if I didn't have that big sense of burden and like the obligation, I you know, the feelings I would have been able to feel at home would have been a lot bigger, brighter, more vibrant. So take this opportunity to celebrate and anchor your light and the highs of life. When you have a peak experience, an emotional high, anchor it. And if there's anything that's suppressing that, you gotta cut it, like release it, let it go. There's nothing worth so worthwhile as allowing your emotions to naturally fly because I've never used that degree. There was no reason for me to put myself through that torture and like that mental like suppression of my actual emotions for all those 5 years of university just for what, essentially? It sounds ludicrous now. The more you remember and celebrate the moments when you simply get to be who you really are, the more you'll notice and create them. And that's really what at the base at like at the core of life is what life is all about. It's living wide awake. And so this has been an episode on how your higher emotions and experience expand your life. It's not about getting the credentials. It's about who you are literally being and the emotional states that you are able to tap into. So that's episode 46 of Let the Story Write Itself.